Hello.
Hi. Welcome back.
Welcome to the Constructivist podcast and video. We're together in this one. So I have recently done some training with my job, and it was all about mediation and getting people to agree on similar issues. And the best part about it was I was actually already fairly confident on a lot of these issues because they're all taught in the Constructivist.
Hell yeah!
One thing that was specifically mentioned was understanding when someone is talking instead of thinking of a response. Because that's really common that people do, is just thinking of how you're going to respond to someone, especially in like a debate-like setting.
And we did talk about that in the very first episode, I believe, because it's in the opening of the Constructivist.
True. You like that?
Uh-huh.
Might as well. Yeah, it's literally in the intro of the Constructivist. Is actually he phrases it as hearing instead of listening, or listening instead of hearing. So that was really cool to me to kind of hear someone from such a specific job and that was really, really skilled at what they were talking about, explaining the exact same things that were in this. So it was nice to have that validation. And yeah, it was really, really cool. There was an exercise that we did that Juliet and I have both done. I've also done it with my boyfriend that we super recommend people trying out, and it's 5 minutes each ways with one person who's the active listener and then one person who is the active speaker. So the speaker answers all the questions, the listener is asking all the questions, and all you can do is ask questions as the listener, because sometimes when someone is talking, which is relevant in a lot of issues, but it's also necessary to practice these listening skills and see how often you're trying to cut somebody else off that you're speaking with.
Or not even necessarily cut them off like I just did with Alyssa.
Yeah, not like that at all.
But rather you want to
Connect
with them. Yeah,
Mhm.
you want to build off of what they're saying versus simply listening and comprehending everything that they're saying and then waiting till they're done and going from there.
So ask me a question.
All right. So, how do you feel today?
I feel really good. Today's been a really good day. We haven't done too much today, so my physical, mental, emotional battery are all pretty charged.
Pretty charged. You're not tired?
I'm tired. Never said that. No. In a normal conversation, if someone asks you how you're doing, you usually ask them back, like, how are you doing? And then you kind of go off that. You kind of assess which person directs which role, essentially. With Juliet and I, it's usually me talking, her listening. That might not be portrayed in this too much, though.
I mean, yeah, I do tend to cut you off when we're working on something like this. I try not to, though. And it's a good idea to try this exercise just to focus on the other person and maybe even make it a daily thing. Maybe not necessarily 5 minutes, but when you ask someone how they're doing, rather than immediately asking the other person how they're doing, maybe try to dive a little deeper and have a more substantial conversation about how they're doing before moving on to the next person.
And when you ask a lot of questions, I mean, in the example with me and my boyfriend yesterday, like, Juliet was like, oh, let's try this exercise with you guys. Let me be like a mediator type-esque and see the relationship between it. Because we were butting heads on something. It was like letting out our dog. Oh, no, it was like cleaning. Mostly cleaning. And I was just like, I feel like I do all these things, blah, blah, blah. And my boyfriend's super, super chill. So he doesn't have many issues. But understanding my issues is important to him. So we kind of went from there. And we actually realized within each other that when I ask him to do something and I'm like, do it right now, it's stressful for him. It's stressful to be like, do this right now instead of giving a certain time limit. And for me, like I'm diagnosed with OCD. So when I say I want something done, I want it done right the fuck then. It's like, this is immediate. And to him, he's like, I don't like that pressure. So we kind of agreed that through communicating, having a certain time frame that's maybe more so implicated by him is really resourceful for us.
Exactly. And for anyone else having that issue, it would be, for an example, like, oh, we have a lot of dishes in the sink. Can you get to this when you have time within the weekend? So you give them 2 days to figure out a time that is convenient and reasonable for them. So it's not just like, do this right now and drop everything that you're doing, or do this right now and not be able to do what you were going to do, things like that. It's more, you have 2 days to figure this out. Whenever you're just sitting around not doing anything, maybe you could do the dishes.
And there are people out there that are going to be like me, and you're going to think to yourself, well, I'm not going to wait for two days for the, tops, for the dishes to be clean. That's when you got to decide if it's worth it to you for you to do them or to wait for the other person to do them. Because it's a very helpful tactic. Moving along, we highly recommend doing that exercise. It was a great exercise. This mediator was phenomenal.
I know.
No, not you. I was talking about the actual mediator.
I was great.
Juliet was amazing. I mean, that needs to be stated as well. Yeah, she did a great job.
Pat myself on the back.
Yeah, she did super good. And then also built off the mediators class was looking for common ground, which is also stated in the introduction to Constructivist. That was written by your father.
I believe the original name of the book when he started writing it was actually going to be Common Ground.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, it was, but that was several years ago. And then he decided he didn't decide, we decided the Constructivist was more appropriate because it was all about our father, not just common ground or constructivism. It was about a specific person, so we went with the Constructivist.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you want to give your fun fact that the mediator gave you?
Oh, yeah. So the average person can speak about 125 to 140 words per minute, and the brain can process up to 1,000. I think it's actually a little bit more than 1,000 even. So when you're in a conversation, your brain, and this is everybody, like your brain is instantly going to go from zip, zap, 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 because you can process so many more things, and you're even thinking of more things, way more things than you're actually, expressing or listening to. So, if Juliet's asking me how my day is going, I'm thinking, what is my next question that's going to be to her to continue this conversation? And that's just what your brain does. There's nothing wrong with that, but utilizing it is really important. And kind of seeing where your brain drifts off to. It's impossible for anyone to be like, I'm going to be 100% in the moment in this conversation all the time. That's just not going to happen because our brains are so insane. So just, give yourself some grace if you're not totally present there. The average person is only present about 25% of the time. So 75% of the time, they are not present in the conversation. They're only hearing 25% of the words.
Absolutely, this is facts, not opinion. But also, even the person who's speaking, based off of this, I would think, and correct me if I'm wrong, they must also be focusing on other things other than what they're actually saying too. Maybe like their presence in the room, the way they're presenting themselves to whoever they're talking about, maybe the next thing that they want to say after what they're already saying. So it's not just the listener that's not 100% focused on the conversation, it's also the person talking. And just being conscientious of that and aware of that might make you a better listener and a better conversationalist in general.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's hard to get your brain fixated on one thing. Especially if it's something that maybe you're not super interested in. So finding the common ground, circling back to the constructivist, it's all about finding that common thing that both people agree on, both people can talk about. Juliet also gave me this book. It's all about negotiating and what is it called?
Bargaining for advantage.
Bargaining for advantage.
And we're going to do a little exercise with you in a moment, right after Alyssa tells you the story about tic-tac-toe.
This is also part of the mediation seminar. So there was a board where everybody went up and did a, it was like a tic-tac-toe board, and people went up and the X's and O's, and the only instructions were get as many points as you can. So people were going up, like everybody in probably the world, like when you have experienced tic-tac-toe, it's usually in like an adversary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like a conflict type situation where you're against someone, where you're trying to win. It's a game. But then it was expressed to us like, hey, if you can get this, one way to actually have this was you guys could have both won and had X amount of points. So the X's team would have 3. Supposedly the O's team would have 4 or 3 as well. And you would both win. The objective wasn't, hey, beat this other team. It was just get as many points as you can. So they could have discussed between each other what's the best tactic to do this, and let's go about that. But when you are looking for a way to win, then it's often possible that you're making someone else lose.
Our father was very adamant that you cannot win unless the other person wins as well.
That was part of the book, too.
It was part of the book. I think we did a video about it already. But I just wanted to do a little exercise with everyone. If you're watching, it's going to be a lot easier. If you're listening, we'll try to verbalize what we're doing. So you're given a scenario, and this is something that you might want to think about just to get an understanding of how you negotiate and how you might put another person's interests into the negotiation. Okay, so you're sitting in a conference room with 5 other people. You're all strangers. There's 3 of you sitting on one side of the table, 3 of you sitting on the other side directly across. Someone comes in and says, I will give $1,000 to the first 2 people who can get the person sitting across from them to stand behind your chair, their chair. So Alyssa and I are sitting across from each other.
We'll demonstrate.
We will demonstrate. We will demonstrate. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Scenario 1.
Juliet, you should come over here. I think that I have the highest advantage because I'm the best looking in the room. I think that you should come behind here because it makes the most sense logically that I would be the leader of this group. Come on back.
So that you can get $1,000 from me standing up behind your chair?
Yes.
What do I get out of it?
I did not realize that was part of this exercise was for you to get something out of this.
But what if I want something out of it?
What do you
want? Give me $500, split it, 50-50?
$1,000 to me. I got 6 children, and they all need a lot of assistance. One of them really needs it.
Yeah.
One of them's worse off than the others.
I feel for you. All right, I'll give you the 1,000. Let's do it. Money, money, money.
Ta-da! But are we the most efficient in the room? That's the question.
That is the question.
What takes
One
me
person.
to convince a stranger to stand behind me?
Okay, so if you come behind my chair right now, I will give you 500. I'll get 500. We each win.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yay, we beat those losers that were debating each other.
Yay! Next option. Okay, I run behind your chair, you run behind mine. Quick, and we each get $1,000.
$1,000. Which way was the most successful to you guys? Or
Which
what
was the
would you
most
have
done?
done?
Are you the person that would sit there trying to convince the other person to get behind your chair? Are you the person that would just go along with it and go behind the other person's chair so that they can at least have $1,000? Would you try to get half of it? Or would you try to make it so you both win as much as possible? And our dad was the last one.
Yeah, I was not.
I was the first time I did it, and then the second time, a long time after, I forgot that I had that answer, and I did the 500, 500. So it could change.
Yeah. And truthfully, it depends on, like, what if I know this person? Do I trust this person to actually give me $500? Like, do I know that Juliet maybe needs the $1,000 more than I do? It really is situational, but the choice that makes the most sense is for both people to go behind each other's chair.
And that's the exercise.